That's your story. That's going to get you noticed. That's going to put you ahead of your colleagues. While they're doing the who, what, when, where, why, you find a character and tell a story that involves emotion, and you're ahead of the game.
Welcome to the Next Level Journalist, where you will hear from some of the best journalists in the business or who have been there, done that, and willing to share with you what they've learned so you can get better, faster. My guest today is a former TV news reporter and anchor, and an Emmy Award-winning one at that. Mr. Adam Marshall, thank you so much for making time for this today.
Kyle, my friend, great to see you. It's been a while.
It has been. Dating back to, I think we both left Northern Kentucky University around 2006.
Yep.
So if my memory serves me right, is that around the same time that you got out and got into the business as well?
Yeah, I was out in '07, so I was a year behind
Okay.
you. You left me there. That's what happened.
Yeah, well, so you went on to spend, what, 13 years then in TV, is that right?
Yeah, a little more than 13 years. I went to um, 3 stations in total. Also a bureau here and there mixed in there as well.
Right. So, Adam, give us a kind of a bullet point version of, actually, before we go to that direction, while you spent 13 years professionally in the business, you've been around TV for most of your life, right?
Yeah, full disclosure, the reason I do what I do, my stepdad worked at WCPO TV in Cincinnati for, I want to say, more than 40 years. So
Wow.
he's been in my life since I was a little guy. So I remember hearing scanners and running to fires and breaking news when I was, man, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old. So I've been around it a while.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Adam, give us that bullet point version of, when you got started and where you're at today.
Yeah, so cliff notes of my career, right? So here we go. NKU, I think about 2005, maybe 2006, I did an internship with WCPO. I was majoring in broadcast journalism. That was my first real taste of TV. As soon as I graduated in '07, I went to KBSH, which was a bureau of KWCH. So I worked for KBSH and KWCH. KBSH was in Hays, Kansas. The main station was in Wichita. Spent, I guess, just shy of 2 years there, basically one TV contract, and then an opening for a reporter at WCPO in Cincinnati opened up. I immediately went there, got that job. That was really my big break. I was at CPO
Right.
for, man, 6, maybe 7 years. I had 3 jobs: reporter, then weekend morning anchor, and then basically a fill-in anchor and what they called a transportation anchor. Basically, I was the traffic dude. Um, and then we all know it's a small business, so I was there several years, and 2 actually former managers that used to work at WCPO were running newsrooms just north in Dayton, Ohio. One at WDTN, which was the NBC affiliate, and one at WHIO, which was the CBS affiliate. And within, I'd say, about 8 to 12 weeks, I actually got an offer from both of them, both offers to anchor the morning news Monday through Friday. So I would love to tell you that I chose one because it was number one in the market or I liked the newsroom. It was a money decision at that point. And KWCH, I'm sorry, WHIO paid the most money, so I went that way. It just so happened that I landed at the number one CBS affiliate. They say in the country, I mean, per capita, the ratings there are
Wow.
outrageous. So up until 6 months ago, I was there anchoring the morning news, and it just so happens there's a right here in Dayton. I work now about, I've been out of TV 6 months now, and I work a mile and a half from my old station. There's a company called Wind Supply. It's a nationwide wholesaler, and I'm in their communications department. I'm still telling great stories. I'm just doing it internally now for the company. So I travel all over the country. We open new shops all the time: HVAC, plumbing, distribution centers, and if something happens in Texas, I get on a plane and go to Texas and tell that story. It's
Wow.
amazing. I still get to be a journalist.
That's cool, Adam. Seeing how you're transferring those skills from one area to the next, I tell people and that either are exploring, playing around with the idea of leaving TV for something else, and it's like, look, when you leave TV, you're ready for almost anything outside of
Yeah.
doing open heart surgery or something like that. I mean, you have the skills and the skill set and just the experience. You're always under the gun. You know this, but how those skills are transferable, and it sounds like you're experiencing that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Kyle. I almost had to tell myself to slow down. TV is so intense that getting out of that environment. I'll give you an example. I'll send an email to a member on my team, and 5, 10 minutes later, if that email is not returned, I'm thinking, what's happening, right? And in their mind, they're like, oh, I'll get to it sometime today or tomorrow, right? I'm lucky enough. I work with a photographer and editor here at Wind Supply. He's very, very talented. His name's Adam as well. He's kind of, he's my sidekick here, and we do all these stories together. And I'll never forget the first time we went out and did a story, and we came back, and he said, "So do you think in the next couple of days you might have like a rough draft script?" And there was almost silence in the room, and I said, "Oh no, dude, I'll have you a script in like 30 minutes, right?" And he was like, "For the whole story?" And I was like, "Yeah, and then we'll voice it, and then if we could go ahead and cut it and have it done by like 2 o'clock this afternoon, that'd be great." So that's the pace that TV is used to that, the business world is not. The good
Right.
news is now I can take a little more time, and, we can be a little more artsy about our projects
Yeah.
and dive in to the details. Whereas sometimes TV, you're just kind of slapping it and getting it on air.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story, Adam. Take us back to when you first broke through. How you think you broke through and got your first opportunity, and what you would tell someone else. Those aspiring journalists who see this about, hey, do these things, or you need to be aware of this. But first, how did you break through? You think
Yeah,
what set you apart?
I can tell you the exact moment. I remember it. It was during my internship at WCPO, and that was back, like I said, 05, 06. It was something like that. And
Hmm.
this is just when the whole internet thing started getting rolling, right? I know for your younger viewers, they're probably like, "Wait, what?" Yeah,
Right.
that was back
I'm
where
with
you
you.
did your whole job on TV, and then at the end of the day, you kind of looked on the web and maybe put a little
Right.
something on there. But essentially, what happened was we had this netcast at WCPO, and it was 3 times a day, just news updates from the newsroom that was only on WCPO.com. This was groundbreaking at the time, right? And I thought, well, Channel 9 let me be on the 6 o'clock news as an intern, and that was an absolute no. So then I thought maybe they'll let me be on the netcast. And I remember going to the news director and saying, "Can I please try this one time?" And his name's Bob Morford, great news director. And he said, "I'll make you a deal. You can do it once. But if you're not good, I'm going to tell you you're not good and you're never going to do it again." And I said, "That's fair. Cool." And I did it the first time. I was so nervous. I was sick to my stomach, and man, it was great. And I did it for the rest of my time as an intern. And then that really helped build about half of my tape. So while my
Sure.
colleagues had college tapes, my stuff looked professional because it was coming out of WCPO in Cincinnati, and that really,
Yeah.
I know for a fact, helped me get my first gig. So my suggestion would be put yourself out there, man. If you're an intern, if you're a new reporter, if you're a college student, be okay with being on the front line. Not everyone's going to be nice. Some people are going to tell you you're not good. That's okay. But yeah, put yourself in a position where you are in front. Even at my career, man, I've had some awful stories that I've had to cover that will stick with me for the rest of my life. But I remember when I heard those stories, when I heard the situation come over the scanner, you would have had to hold me back in the newsroom because I'm out the door. I mean, we've had school shootings and we've had mass shootings, and this was all since I've been in Dayton. And I'm the first one
Hmm.
out of the newsroom in a car saying, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." And that's key.
It sounds like your resume tape was significantly better than mine. I can attest. I had a lot of college stuff on there. How I got my first job, I don't know. But how did you continue that success? Because obviously you had a polished resume, and I'm sure you probably sent the tape, maybe a DVD back in the day. But what did your next tape and your next tape look like? In order to continue to show that you were, gaining skills and capabilities. So how did you continue that success?
So first of all, take on the hard stories. Um, you know, if and when they're available. So your investigative pieces, they're a lot of work. There's a lot of criticism involved. You'll have an executive producer look over your stuff. You'll have a producer look over your stuff. Then you'll have a special projects executive producer look over your stuff, and then the assistant news director and the news director. So there's a lot of criticism, but through that feedback, you get better and your stories get better and they're layered, right? It's not your generic ribbon cutting. So if
Hmm.
and when the hard story gets presented, go ahead and take it. And that will help you build your skills. It will help you build your tape. During breaking news, really soak those moments in, whether you're in the field or behind a desk, and go back and watch yourself during those major stories and see what you did that you liked and what you did that you didn't like. A lot of young journalists don't take the time to go back and watch themselves. And I always recommend go back and watching yourself because it's going to happen again. If you're in
Hmm.
news, whatever you did today, breaking news, what it will circle back around. I promise something similar. So don't shy away from the investigative pieces. Don't shy away from watching yourself and getting better really weekly. I mean, I tried to do it, and realistically it was probably bi-weekly, but I would try to go back and watch my work. Even as a full-time news anchor that did it every day, once a month, I would go and just watch 20 or 30 minutes of myself just to see if I liked the way I looked and sounded and if I could have handled this or that a little bit better. And then the biggest thing, man, is be flexible. I never thought or wanted to be the traffic guy at Channel 9, right? I mean, I just didn't. But I knew that was going to put me Monday through Friday. I knew when the anchor wasn't there, it was going to open up, opportunities that I didn't have being the anchor on the weekend. And it made sense. It made sense for me. So I did it and I was flexible. Never thought I was going to live in Dayton, Ohio, but I went because the opportunity was right. I was willing to move. And I never thought I was going to work for a wholesaler, but here I am, and we sell plumbing and HVAC, and I love it. So yeah, be flexible with your career. It's not always exactly as you think it's going to be. Young journalists need to be willing to move as well. I know that's
Hmm.
really tough, but I always say it's almost like being an athlete for a lot less money, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, as a baseball player, you're going to move teams. And if you want to play in the big leagues, you're going to get traded and you're going to move around every couple of years. And that's just the reality of it. So, it's very similar
Yeah.
with journalism.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, and I love the humility that you shared about how you would go back and watch yourself. I mean, even someone who was the main, one of the main faces in Dayton, well established, more than 10 years in the business, and you still went back and watched yourself. I did the same thing because I would pick up different tendencies I have, or if I would say the same word more than So I appreciate hearing that because I do also hear other people say they don't watch themselves. So that's a good tip. I definitely agree with you there. How about some challenges that you faced along the way when you were in the industry and what you
Ah,
learned from those challenges, whether that be, um, you know, a mistake you made or a mistake a colleague made or maybe an embarrassing moment or whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is keeping everything in perspective. And what I mean by that is work life balance can be tough as a journalist, especially on TV. So, first of all, there's just the wave of the actual job, the ups and downs. Um, the polar swing that you go through as a journalist. Here's one example. I remember there was a specific day where at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was knocking on a woman's door whose son had just lost his life. Um,
Mm.
and and my job was to go get sound from the mother, right? And that is a very, very tough thing to do. And in that moment you think, I don't get paid enough for this, right? Like, I wish I didn't have to do this. But that's just the way it was. Fast forward 2 hours and I was in a tuxedo in a ballroom raising money for, I'm not even sure what it was at this point, the Philharmonic or something, and raising tens of thousands of dollars and emceeing this grand event that was two, three, four, $500 a plate, and that's in the same day, right? So you have to keep everything in perspective. I also remember going home and getting frustrated, when my kids or my wife were upset about something, and my thought was, do you have any idea what I just did today? Do you have any idea what I've seen? But then I would have to back up and realize, you know what, this is a big deal to them. This is what they've been through today. They don't know what I've been through, and I need to check my work at the door, right? So keeping that all in perspective. Then, Kyle, as you know, there's the challenges of, um, you know, I worked in the middle of the night, man, for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I woke up at 1:30 in the morning. I went to bed at 5 o'clock in the evening. My children told me nighttime stories. That's kind of how we worked through it. So it's difficult. And, if you want to be a main news anchor, you're either going to work 3A to noon or you're going to work 3P to midnight. There's no real happy medium. 9 to 5 is a very rare thing in TV. So that can take
Mm-hmm.
its toll. It can take its toll on you, you know, mentally and physically and your personal and even your professional relationships. So always keep that in mind that if you're feeling down and it's getting tough, that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Always reach out to a colleague that's maybe going through the same thing, someone who's done it before, and they'll tell you how they coped. I mean, we set up we made lunch a big deal at my house because that's the meal I could have with my kids. So lunch was a very special, and then they did dinner without me. So I did that to survive the 1:30 wake up call. So,
Mm-hmm.
looking back on it, yeah, I there were many times where I could have and should have been more patient. Even working at the pace that we work, I noticed I had very little patience in my personal life. So that's something I had to recognize myself and change within me to help me and my family be happier. So I work 9 to 5 now, man. It's great. It's great. So on the right path.
Yeah, clearly the perspective thing got a little more clear for you, and that's great advice. And
I,
speaking of
I do want to
advice,
bring up one more thing, if you don't mind me
go ahead.
interrupting, especially for young journalists. You need to remember, because I see this all of the time. You talk about mistakes that are made, and my goodness, I've seen them. If and when you are on a news scene, assume someone has a camera on you. Assume there is a hot mic, because with all the live streaming services, with Facebook and Twitter and everything else that goes along, everybody has a smartphone. Um, just assume that someone is recording you. So, the way you conduct yourself, what you say at a breaking news scene, what you say at a news conference, anything, just know that you're representing, not only yourself in your own journalistic integrity, but your entire station. And the moment you do something or say something that you don't want on camera is the time that someone may think you're a big deal and they've seen you on TV and they're recording you on Facebook, and you don't know it. So just be aware. I've luckily not been caught up in that mess, but I've seen that mess several times. And also, if you ever find yourself in front of a camera and you're the one being interviewed, assume the camera is already recording and the mic is hot for the entire time. Because I've had several, police chiefs and fire chiefs and officials, city officials, and they say things that they had no idea we were already rolling. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, and I was actually just going to ask you, if you had some good advice to pass along. Obviously, there's some good advice there. How about to twist that question, best advice maybe you were given, or any advice that sticks out to you that you were given, whether you were first starting out or whether you had been in the business 10 years? What advice do you think that you've given that maybe stuck with you over the years?
I would say don't be shy. And that, man, that's there's many different steps of your career where you should not be shy. Whether it's on a news scene, walk up to the chief, let him know you're there. Walk up to the victim's family and let them know you're there, and just be forefront. If you're a shooter and you're getting B-roll, right? Don't stand in the back of the crowd at an event. Go around, go up on stage, get the shots you need. I work with a lot of young photographers that would just be really just nervous and scared to get in front and get the shots they need. Everyone assumes you are there for a reason. They know exactly what you're doing. So be bold. With that said, be bold in your career choices, right? Apply to those places that maybe you think you don't have a chance, because you never know. I mean, TV is completely different now than it was 20 years ago. You don't have to have 15 years of experience. You don't have to, this pedigree doesn't need to exist. If you're sharp and you're good at what you do, go for it. When it comes to money, when it comes to new contracts, ask for it, right? Be comfortable with that uncomfortable situation. I work with a lot of journalists who, I always tell them, if you don't fight for you, they're not going to fight for you, right?
Right.
Management wants to get you at the cheapest price. fight for yourself. Try to make a living at this. Try to scratch something out for you and your family. So yeah, be bold, and that'll take you a long way.
And able to separate, in order to fight for yourself, you obviously have to be able to separate yourself and sell yourself
Hmm.
for those aspiring journalists or for journalists in general. And I always say aspiring journalists, that's anybody. When I was in the business for 10 years, I was still aspiring.
Yeah,
So what would you suggest to those aspiring journalists? Like, hey, this is how you can separate yourself. These are, so obviously speaking up, but you have to be able to back that up as well. So how do you think, and obviously that's different for reporters, for photojournalists to anchors, but maybe speaking from your experience, and because you've done a little bit of everything.
yeah.
So what would you say would help separate, people from the pack?
Well, first of all, get into a good school, right? If you're already in a good school and you're in a good program, great. You have to do internships. That's going to be the most eye-opening thing you can do. So if you want to write for a newspaper, intern with a newspaper. If you want to be on TV, intern with a television station. If you can, I recommend interning with a local television station as much as I would, let's say CNN or ABC or NBC or CBS out of New York, because you're really going to get hands-on experience and then dive in. Don't sit in the corner and wait for 5 o'clock because no one's going to come and tap you on the shoulder and say, come with me. Ask
Mm-hmm.
if you can go, ask if you can do, ask if you can partake, and then be okay when it doesn't work out perfectly, because that's just the way it is. So when a reporter's heading out the door, ask if you can go with them. If a photographer's heading out the door, ask if you can go with them, and then start to really build your tape. I mean, resumes are very important, but in TV, the biggest resume you have, I say tape. I'm old. You know what I mean? The
Right.
link, the reel. That's what you need to build. And that's really going to help you get your first job. And like I said, if you
Here's
want to
my tape,
separate
Adam.
yourself, yeah, if, if
That's the real deal.
exactly, that's it. That's it. But if you really want to separate yourself, yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to step up and just do it, and make yourself better.
Yeah, I love how I hear a recurring theme. Be proactive. I've
Hmm.
heard that over and over. That's awesome. And never stop getting better. Always be working at your craft. You did it for 13 years. Never stopped being proactive and developing your craft. And I appreciate everything you shared, Adam. And one question I used to always ask people when I would do an interview. Anything else you want to add? Anything that maybe I missed that you thought, you know what, I want to share this with this audience of aspiring journalists? Anything come to mind?
Here's what I will say. Yeah, absolutely. Being a journalist is awesome. It really is fantastic. I mean, Kyle, I have done things and gone places and experienced events that I would never in a million years have the time or money or influence to do so. And you just have to understand that as many bad days as there are, there's that many, if not more, good days. So, I've flown in an F-18 with the Blue Angels, and I've done a backflip out of a jet with the Air Force. I've done tornado chasing through Oklahoma with a bunch of professionals, and the list goes on and on and on. So none of those things would I have been able to do. I've been to the Emmys and gotten an Emmy, right? Local TV Emmys, but still, right? I mean, it's cool. It's all really really cool, and that's all because I decided to be a journalist. So I still get to see this great country, and see our team, the Wind Supply team that I'm with now, doing the best they can to serve their customers, and I get to tell those stories, and it's never ending. There's always a good story, and once you're a journalist, you can't turn it off, as you know. I know you still travel around telling
Yep.
stories, so that's
Yep.
what we do, and it's a really cool life.
Well, give us. I'm going to ask you a follow up to that. Give
Yeah.
us one tip, if you can,
Hmm.
about storytelling, because that's another thing I keep on hearing from you.
Yeah.
So, as an award winning one at that. So, what's some storytelling advice you could give to our viewers?
Yeah, so you have to. I mean, who, what, when, where, why. Everything has to be accurate. Okay, so let's just check that box. You
Mm-hmm.
have to find a character. You have to find emotion. Um, and it's odd, but I promise you and I could drive down the street and you could point at I don't know, a mailbox. and give me a couple of days, and I promise I could somehow do a story on that mailbox and the guy in the factory that made it and his struggle in life, right? I mean, anything can be a story, but you have to have a
Yeah.
character that brings out emotion. If I was going to go to a, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a breaking news situation, a car crash. The who, what, when, where, why is important, but really who's affected by that car crash, who's going to struggle because of that in one way or the other. That's your story. That's going to get you noticed. That's going to put you ahead of your colleagues. While they're doing the who, what, when, where, why, you find a character and tell a story that involves emotion, and you're ahead of the game.
Awesome, Adam. And whoever sees this is now ahead of the game. So thank you so much, Adam, for making
You
time
bet.
for this. I know we could have gone down a ton of different rabbit holes, but I want to respect your time as you are taking time out of your workday.
Yeah.
Hopefully, your employer doesn't find out about that, but nonetheless, I appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle.
And thank you for checking out this channel. If you found this content beneficial, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you think might find it beneficial as well, because this channel was simply started and created to serve you, to help others grow, to learn how other successful TV journalists do or did it. So take what serves you so you can get better faster and reach your next level.